Well, we just got the figures of US inflation in the month of December, and we also got the Indian inflation numbers, consumer price inflation numbers yesterday. And perhaps for a long time in living memory, we have US inflation coming in at higher than Indian inflation. US inflation for the month of December came in at 7%. That's close to a 40-year high. And Indian inflation came in at 5.59 or 5.6%, which is a 5-month high. So what are the implications of US inflation being at 7%? And what is inflation really? Inflation is a measure of the rate of increase in prices. It is not just that the prices are increasing, but it measures the rate of increase of prices. So when you have US inflation at 7% and core inflation, that is inflation, headline inflation, minus food and fuel inflation coming in at over 5%, at 5.5%, these are danger signals not just for the US, but also for the rest of the world. First, let us understand what are the reasons why inflation is so high. Not just in the US, we also got OECD inflation, which is coming in at 25-year high. So all over the world, we're seeing rising inflation. It means a rising rate of increase of prices. So let's look at the US inflation. What explains the rise in US inflation? The first, of course, is what the US Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell kept saying, that this is because of supply disruptions. Because of COVID, global trade was disrupted, local supply chains were disrupted, so we had supply disruptions. So a common reason given for inflation rising in the US, and mind you, this is not a new phenomenon. We've seen US inflation rising over the months, October, November, December, and even before that. So what explains the rise, apart from supply disruptions because of COVID? Another reason in the US case particularly is the recovery in the US economy. Thanks to the fiscal and the monetary stimulus given both by the US government and the US Federal Reserve, the US economy has recovered much more rapidly than people anticipated, as a result of which there's been a sharp increase in recovery. So combined with the supply disruptions which crunch supply, we have a sharp increase in demand. Perfect situation for prices to rise and rise way beyond what anybody anticipated. What facilitated this rise was the fact that US Federal Reserve had kept monetary policy loose, excessively loose ever since the outbreak of the pandemic in a bid to support the economy. Along with that, the US government, both under President Trump and now under Biden, have both also given very extravagant, generous, ambitious, whatever you want to call it, fiscal stimuli. The combination was a rapid improvement, recovery in the US economy, but along with that, a rapid increase in inflation. So we have the perfect storm for high inflation. Mind you, all these days, all these months rather, when there were signs of US inflation looking up, the US Federal Reserve Chairman kept saying that this is transitory, inflation will come down, it is not going to kind of continue forever. But as we have seen month after month, with inflation not showing any signs of coming down, the Federal Reserve has finally conceded that this is not a transitory phenomenon. They can no longer look through it and must do something fast to ensure that inflation comes under control.